Also have a team that updates families, and we also started video chatting with the families. One of our unit secretaries comes in and volunteers her time to video chat with these families to give them an opportunity to see their loved ones, even if they are on a breathing tube and they have all of these medications and drips going into them and they don't look like their loved one, and they're not used to seeing their loved one like this, but it gives them an opportunity to almost be like they're at the bedside. And we actually have baby monitors. So we have a baby monitor outside the room and inside the room. So then that way we're able to communicate with each other. And we've also implemented, when we're video chatting with the families, holding up the baby monitor to the patient's ear so that way they can hear their loved ones too. And I think that does give the family time to speak to their loved one even though they don't get to see. And at the same time, it kind of takes away, I know I feel guilty when I don't get to speak to the families as much as I would normally.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And I know that our doctors are taking a lot of time after their shifts even to call the families and update them, just so that way we are still staying personal and so connected with the families.
Now, you have to wear personal protective equipment, or PPE, when you're on shift. Can you explain how you get ready to enter the ward every time?
At first, we were wearing our own scrubs from home, and then all of the nurses on my unit had expressed their worries about wearing the same clothes home. So our hospital actually provided hospital scrubs for us, so that way we're not taking anything home to our families. We were provided a lot of training on the PPE that we do have now. So in order to go into a room, we have these hoods called PAPRs. Don't quote me on what they're called. I think they're powered air positive something. Anyway, it's a respirator. And it is attached to a motor, and the motor weighs about anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So we attach the hood to that, we turn it on, and it blows positive pressured air through the hood so that way we stay safe. We put on the PAPR, we put on our masks or our goggles, and then we put on our gowns, and then we're ready to go in the room. It does take a while, and you get used to it, but it's your nurse's natural instinct to run in there. But you have to take a step back and remember that
you need to be safe too. Hannah, what are the challenges of wearing this gear for long periods of time?
So unlike Bianca, who appears to put on the PPE before they go in the room, we have made our intensive care and our theatres and recovery sort of a huge red zone. Before we even enter that area, we have to put on our PPE. So we're usually wearing it for 4 or 5 hours at a time. We get like half an hour breaks, about 3 a day. So it's about 4 or 5 hours at a time. And we don't take it off. The only thing we'll change is maybe the second set of gloves from patient to patient. And it is hot. And that's all I can say about it. You know, you're wearing long sleeve gowns, 2 pairs of gloves, a mask, surgical cap that covers your hair, and then you're wearing the face shield. And the thing is, I don't think people realise how physically demanding nursing is, especially intensive care nursing. To reposition a patient, which we have to do every 2 to 4 hours to prevent pressure sores, it takes 3 or 4 people. So it is quite heavy work, and you find yourself sweating, you get really thirsty, really hungry, but you obviously can't eat or drink while you're wearing it because that will put you at risk of exposure. So you find yourself, when you come out, just glugging down litres of water to try and rehydrate yourself.
Yeah. Are you worried, Bianca, about getting infected? The risk must be on your mind.
I am worried. Originally, when I had spoken to my boss about opening up this COVID unit, we weren't sure of how many patients we were going to get, but I immediately volunteered just because I am young, I don't have any other health issues, I don't go home to my parents, I go home to my roommates who are all very similar in age with me, and they also don't have any health issues. So I figured that it would be more safe for me to go in than other people with children and their elderly parents and things like that. So I do still worry, because it's definitely a possibility that I could get exposed anywhere, not even just at work. It follows me everywhere. But just seeing how differently it affects everyone, I'm definitely scared that if I were to get this virus, I wouldn't know how sick I would get.
Right. Hannah, are you scared?
Initially I wasn't, I'll admit, because, it was all about how it's people with long-term conditions, elderly seem to get really sick with it. But the more I started working, the more I realised it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what health conditions you have. If you get really sick with it, you get really sick with it. It doesn't seem to discriminate in that way. We don't know what the quality of a life of a lot of these people who are going to recover from this will be. So it is quite scary. I'm lucky as well that I live with other nurses who work in the same hospital. Some of them work with me on the same intensive care unit, so we're all exposed the same. But it is a big fear. But I try not to think about it too much, because I think otherwise it would become all-consuming and you wouldn't go into work, you wouldn't be able to do your job.
Bianca, is there a kind of, camaraderie or black humor between your co-workers right now?
There is. I think it helps that we all worked together before this happened. We're able to keep things light at the same time as know how serious the situation is.
When you say keep things light, how?
We do end up joking. One of the nurses on my unit she asked all of us to send her one of our favorite photos, and she made cards with quotes or sayings. We posted them on one of the walls outside of the patient's rooms, so that way when we're passing by or when other staff comes by, they stop and they look at it, and everyone has a smile. The whole hospital has a sense of camaraderie that I think before we saw each unit as different, but now we all work together now. I feel like I now know more about my hospital.
Yeah, the exact same thing's happening. We're getting this appreciation for what each other does, and I think we'll come back out of this better for it.
I absolutely agree with that.
And Hannah, just tell me a little bit more about how this has bonded you and your co-workers together.
So we were quite a close intensive care unit before. We were quite small, and there'd be like a max of 50 nurses on at a time. And then we were really close to all the doctors, the physiotherapists, the pharmacists. They've all been so incredible, so supportive. But I think it's because we're coming together for this common good. We are all stepping out of our comfort zones together.
Well, let's pause there. My guests are two intensive care nurses working at the front line of the coronavirus pandemic, Bianca Dentino from the United States and Hannah Gray from the UK. So, Hannah, at the start of all of this, you started writing a blog called The Corona Lisa, where you document the highs and lows of being an ICU nurse during this time. What made you decide to blog about it?
Actually, at the beginning of this, I volunteered to go to NHS Nightingale, which is obviously the huge London hospital that they were going to make into like a 4,000-bedded intensive care unit. I thought it would be incredible to document my experiences there. But then I thought, wait, why aren't I documenting what's happening now? Because what's happening in my intensive care unit is very abnormal. And I had so many people messaging me and asking me, how are you? We don't know what's happening on the front line. Can you tell us? I messaged my nursing friends and I was like, what would you think if I started a blog? And they were like, do it. And then 2 hours later, I had my first blog post out.
And what sort of response have you received about the blog?
Oh, it's been incredible. It may be because my dad has shared it everywhere, and so all his friends are liking it, so it's a bit biased.
Proud father.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, everyone's just so grateful for it, because I think We're getting a lot of information off the news and the media, but we're not getting a lot from the front line and what it's like to be a junior member of staff going through this. Because, you know, a lot of news programs are interviewing the directors of nursing and the consultants, things, rightly so, because they know far more than I do. But I know some people did want to know what it is like to be working on the front line, and they were so supportive of it, and I'm so grateful to them for reading it.
It does really provide a unique window into your world, and there's one post that caught my attention because you described your emotions as being on steroids. What did you mean by that?
I just feel like everything that I feel is amplified. My threshold for things seems to have shrunk, and I know for a lot of my colleagues that is exactly the same. You know, we're tired, and what we're seeing is emotionally draining. It's very difficult.
Bianca?
I wasn't concerned until it started coming over to the United States with this, especially because it's a respiratory spread illness. It's so dangerous. When it started to come this way, then I started to get a little bit panicked. Well, not panicked. I started to get a little worried. When it hit New York, I got really scared. I'm very thankful that it hasn't gotten that bad here as it is in New York, but it's still definitely scary.
Now, Hannah, what for you was the particular appeal in becoming an intensive care nurse? It seems like a very specialized role.
I think that's why it appealed. I love the application of the knowledge that you need, but then also that intense, hence why it's called intensive care, one-to-one care. You know your patient inside out. There's just this joy in knowing that you're the one that's been pulling all that care together to get them better, and when they come out of it and you've been part of that team that's helped them, yeah, it's incredible.
And Bianca, did you always have that caring instinct?
I definitely always wanted to be in the medical field, and I wanted to be directly at the bedside, so that's why I chose nursing.
But how then did you end up working in ICU?
So that's a good question. I originally worked on a surgical floor, so a post-surgical floor, and I just was very curious about intensive care. I wanted to expand my knowledge, and so I took the leap, and I've been doing this now for a little bit over 2 years.
Now, there has been an enormous outpouring of gratitude for essential workers such as yourself. In the UK, at least, you have people standing on their doorstep clapping weekly as shows of appreciation. You see rainbows painted into windows and organizations offering workers discounted or free food. Hannah, do you feel recognized and appreciated, or does that ring hollow somehow?
Oh, definitely. I do feel like a lot of us feel a bit conflicted by it as well, though.
Why?
Because obviously it's an appreciation that a lot of people think that we should have been having before all of this. But I completely acknowledge that what we're doing is completely different to what we're used to. We're all out of our comfort zones, and we're working to the bone, and the public recognise that. And I'm definitely not one to pass free food, that's for sure. The claps every Thursday just make me cry every time. It doesn't fail.
Bianca, what do you make of the hero status health workers are being given right now? Do you feel appreciated?
I do feel appreciated, but I also feel like we're starting to appreciate other people in the hospital more too, like our housekeepers, our clinical care technicians, because like Hannah said, that we're all experiencing this together and we're all out of our comfort zone.
Well, Bianca and Hannah, you're both in your 20s, and I'm wondering, do you think you will look back on this and see it as a formative experience, Bianca?
Absolutely. I think that this is a huge learning curve for me and everyone else that I work with and everyone else in the healthcare field.
Hannah, how do you think you will reflect on this in, say, a year's time?
It's very strange because I'm very much living in the moment. I feel like if I think too far ahead, it gets a bit overwhelming because how long this will last is uncertain. But I am very aware that we're sort of living in history, which is very, very strange. It's very surreal. I feel like I'm in a film at the moment. It doesn't feel very real. But like Bianca said, it will be interesting to see how this will affect how we connect with each other.
Hannah, I know you said that you're living in the moment right now, but what do you think you are learning or have learned about yourself?
That I'm much more resilient than I thought, that I can keep smiling even in the face of adversity.
Bianca, has this changed you in any way?
I definitely have to agree with Hannah that I'm learning how resilient I am. I'm definitely learning to speak to my friends more about my days at work, just because I feel like it needs to be said, because we are experiencing trauma. I don't like using that to describe this, but I feel like it's the most appropriate way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And I'm learning that I can take on a lot more than what I'm used to.
Hannah, you were saying?
No, I completely agree. You don't want to use the word trauma, but I don't know how else to explain it. What we're going through, what everyone is going through, all of a sudden everything we love is being taken away from us. We can't go see our family. We can't even hug each other. So it is a trauma.
Well, Hannah and Bianca, thank you so much for giving us this insight into the tremendous work that you're both doing. I wish you both the very best.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be able to share my story.
Thank you both. My guests were two ICU nurses who are at the front line of the coronavirus pandemic, Hannah Gray in London and Bianca Dentino in Boston in the US. I'm Kim Chakaneta. Thanks for listening and stay well.
This is the BBC World Service, following the first 100 days of Brexit.
When the United Kingdom left the European Union on the 31st of January this year, no one could have guessed that the country would change so much. Not because of Brexit, but because of a global pandemic. Join me, Kaz Graham, as I hear stories of how Get Brexit Done turned into Stay at Home.
100 days of Brexit. bbcworldservice.com/documentaries.